Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tackle Productions. Today I'm Bancroft, being joined once again by Jimmy, new to the channel, Sean, and like always, Fluff.
Howdy.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, beautiful people?
In today's matchup, we are continuing with the Rising Phoenix Odyssey tournament, where Fluff is actually playing against Sean, who's part of the Rising Phoenix channel, and they are playing King Cole versus Super 17. So, like always, there's buttons down below. Feel free to click them. They're there for a reason. But guys, let's take it away.
So this is part of the Rising Phoenix Odyssey kind of invitational on their Discord for a bunch of content creators. I think we've had a few of these on the channel before. I typically don't participate in these because of time constraints, but I actually get to participate in this one. So my first round, my opponent never responded. So this is technically the first round that I'm playing, despite the fact that it's actually 6 total rounds. I think it is 6 rounds, right?
I think that's correct on the main bracket, but it's a double elimination.
Okay. So it is double elimination. So I haven't been eliminated yet. I don't think any of us have at this point, which is fantastic. I'm playing King Cold, which is a deck that I'm pretty comfortable with, especially siding and just kind of piloting against decks that maybe I don't have as much experience against, and kind of knowing when to push and when not to push. So I'm feeling pretty good. This is no different than like the King Cold that I featured on the channel. Sean, do you want to kind of talk about your 17 list? Anything you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, so I've been playing it a lot since set 14 came out. The build has changed up a bit a few times over the last month or so. The deck does a lot of really cool things as far as how consistent it is with the 3-drop and the Unison just filtering a ton of cards. So I feel like you just get to see every piece of your chain every game, and then I personally elect to fill the rest of the deck with a lot of just generally good yellow cards. Like you can see Power of a Super Saiyan in my energy. I'm using that along with other extra cards to facilitate stuff like Mecha Frieza, Robotic Riposte, just to give the deck enough defense and other just good value to get to the top end of the Super 17 chain.
Absolutely. The yellow is probably my favorite color in the game right now. And stuff like Power of a Super Saiyan and Robotic Riposte don't seem ultimately powerful on the face, but their interaction over the course of the turn and the disruption that they can cause is super oppressive. So just being able to go from having that versatility in your turn to turn defenses amounts into a very prolonged game state, which, as you all will kind of see, the longer the game goes on, the stronger your deck ultimately becomes, which is almost insurmountable at times.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely snowballs really hard if you let it. This deck can get a really wide board for very low energy investment, which leaves a lot of room to defend.
Yeah. The one of the things that I found interesting about like the interactions here is we're kind of running dually ineffective cards in our decks against each other. So I have Charismatic Villain, which can't hit your 3-drop coming in, so it's kind of a dead card at that point. And then you're running Robotic Riposte against a deck that puts a ton of field cards on the field. So Robotic Riposte almost will never stop me from completing my turn as desired. But Charismatic Villain is such an important part of this deck. It feels almost bad against you because really the first applicable target is your 5-drop, which when popped, puts your 3-drop back out for free. So it's almost no net loss in advantage for you.
Yeah, it always feels very good when I'm piloting this deck against green, because it's easy to just bait out a Charismatic Villain, and then when you use it on the 5-drop, because that is really the best target to use it on, I'm going to get the 3-drop back anyway. I can use the leader to replace a card under it, and then I can still go into my boss, which is an 8-drop Super 17 with Deflect, so there's not really anything you can do to counterplay it.
Yeah. The 8-drop is really difficult for green to deal with overall, unless you can survive the turn and then kind of crack back in the next turn with some type of removal. But green doesn't have a ton of oppositional removal that would just hit that card as an 8-drop, so charismatic villains don't work against it. There's almost nothing else defensive except for like the Chilled Promo and Kakunsa off the top of my head as cards that actually hit it.
Yeah, nothing else comes to my mind either, thinking of a reactive way to remove it for green.
Yeah, and so my only alternative at that point is to just try to keep you off of it. And you did get the energy advantage in this game starting first, so you're going to be slightly ahead of me in that regard.
Yeah, and I personally think it made a big difference in how this game turned out, being able to be 1 energy up on you.
Absolutely. King Cold is a really sticky, hard to get through deck, but you essentially I get the opportunity to deal first damage to you, but you get the first advantage to make an impact on the board. I think overall, we see here, you've got 2 barrier 3-drops on the field that are just sitting there. They're not doing anything to stop my field or shut me down, but it's just now becoming this threat of respond to this card or I'm going to beat you. And
yeah,
I cited in the coolers, the 4-drop coolers there, to use as counterplays. And in this match in particular, I shouldn't have cited those in. I should have cited in stuff like the 4-drop unison that blows out the field, ignoring barrier. I feel like that would have been a lot better in this particular matchup, because that cooler, I've got it, but unless I purposefully leave the energy open for it or can catch you playing a 3-drop, it just doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, and it's also not even that hard to just pay 1 energy and end up with another 3-drop on my board anyway, so the cooler doesn't really net you anything aside from getting its body on your field after the counterplay.
Yeah, which isn't extremely valuable in this matchup. I mean, it's nice. Having another body that could be 15, 20,000 is always, is as nice as it can be, but I don't think it's a make or break type of game move. So,
yeah.
So here we kind of back into the robotic riposte, where it doesn't really do much. I can just tap my field cards if I chose to make additional swings or put on. I do want to talk briefly about Paragus Berry Blue on the field. That is just a pure advantage with being able to pop a new ruler and playing either a new ruler or Unstoppable Invasion from your drop area with Berry Blue. It's just a cycle of recurrent advantage. And if you let your opponent keep those 2 cards on the field for longer than a turn, it really is a huge shift in resource management towards the cooler deck.
So, Fluff, I actually have a question for you regarding King Cold and its hand size that it can amass very quickly.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, Sean, you're looking at his hand, and it has to be scary facing down a hand of that size. Even though your hand is very healthy. But something that I've had to wrap my brain around, and Fluff, I'd like you to comment on this, and that you have to assume that a majority of those cards have to be uncomboable field cards, just due to the amount of field cards that the deck runs.
You would be surprised how often you get flooded with field cards, or how infrequently you get flooded with field cards. Like if you look at my hand now, just looking at the hand, only 1 card in my entire hand is a field card. because you can charge them. Once you have a berry blue on the field, you only need 1 or 2 copies in the drop area. The rest can just become charge targets. So I think actually here I'm charging a charismatic villain because I want the option to be able to +1 on the unison and play a new ruler from hand. Yeah. So just like that, where I'm going in. Now I'm getting a search, which can be one of any 3 cards. So you would think that you would get clogged with field cards, but I almost find that it never happens. Your hand more often than not tends to be like Royal Supremacy, charismatic villains, a revived reviled, a super combo, a homicidal clones. And I think in all the games that we played, Sean, I think I had 3 to 4 Royal Supremacy every game.
I believe it. That's always how it ends up when I play the deck. You get so many, you see so many cards, and you have so many ways to filter it that I don't think King Cold ever really clogs on more than like 2 field cards in hand that you don't want to be looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. The deck is surprisingly defensive, and you'll kind of notice here one card that is not present in my hand and not present in the main deck is Dormant Potential. I don't think this deck runs Dormant Potential as a main deck option whatsoever. You don't need it. Having a green unison on the board is usually enough to psych your opponent into thinking that maybe there is a Dormant, and they may make plays to prevent Dormant from being as effective, but you don't run it because you don't care about it. The leaders activate battle, plus the super combos, plus the sheer amount of draws, plus the type of negates, the quality of the negates in the deck, now that we have the Boo Topo, essentially, just amounts to you not needing to have Dormant. And in a lot of ways, that Boo is more impactful than Dormant, because if your opponent wants to push through the Boo, you still can activate Royal Supremacy for free. Your opponent's wasting cards in their hand, and it's just good. So yeah, I don't think the hand ever really gets clogged with field cards. Maybe if like on your first turn you drew nothing but field cards, then maybe.
So you mentioned the berry blue being integral to keeping the cycle of field cards. Would you see clearing the berry blue being like #1 priority as the opponent to King Cold?
Probably yes, because berry blue lets you recur lets you recur field cards. So you of course run 4 berry blue. So the chance that they have another berry blue or access to an additional berry blue is very high, but then you're forcing them into instead of spending 1 energy to recycle a field card, they're having to spend 2 while also opening an additional counterplay window. So getting rid of the berry blue and the Paragus are probably more paramount than trying to rip markers off the unison, in my opinion. And just make sure to always have a negate or a blocker ready to be in response to that unison swing. Like, a lot of people will dump a ton of resources into trying to take that unison out, and I really think it's more important to try to take out berry blue Paragus, then go after the unison, or if not, just try to kill the leader, and then have the negates ready to deal with unison and leader swings.
Gotcha.
So Sean, as a pro here, hit me with that Sen Shenron, basically scrapped the push on my turn. I felt pretty confident him tapping and then playing the 8-drop that I was going to be able to survive most anything that happens here. I mean, I am tapped out. I am sitting on a Royal Supremacy. I've got a lot of big combo potential here. And I do have a homicidal clone token to be able to play a blocker here. So I'm feeling okay about my ability to defend. The question is, do I also have the ability to crack back after this turn? So this was a really scary field to be looking down the barrel. And there, I probably should have just used the blocker first off, so I wouldn't have fell to power of a Super Saiyan. But it was a good punish there.
Yeah, and not making the blocker happen and not just getting value off it is a risk you run against yellow, because there are so many ways that they can just easily tap down your blockers now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It was a feels bad moment, really. I mean, nothing I could do about it except what I'm doing here, and just trying to combo out and combo through it. And this really right here is showing the extent potential that Super 17 has, because the 8-drop is going to let you restand your leader and give the leader a big bump. So you weren't able to kill me, but you're at 4 life and you've got a blocker on field. And so at this point, I have to bait you into using that blocker and not burning in a gate. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And this is Jimmy and I often talk about the puzzle that yellow presents. If I swing with the lead first, you can power of a Super Saiyan tap my Unison. If I swing with the Unison, there's a chance you're running a Moss super combo and you tap my lead. Or you Flying Nimbus me and reduce, my entire turn to 1 battle card.
Yeah, that's something that I was alluding to earlier, talking about the defensive capabilities of the deck. There's just so many ways that I can punish you for attacking by taking away other attacks. It almost feels like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, where you can't really try to pressure yellow without being punished in some way.
Yeah. Yellow is like, it's almost a gamble in a lot of ways. Like, I can do A or I can do B, depending on the quality of my opponent's hand. They can punish A and or B. So you're either damned if you do, damned if you don't, or you have a 50-50 chance of making the wrong decision. And I've always said that the yellow is the color that can make a mountain out of an anthill. So if your opponent makes one tiny mistake, you can turn that entire mistake into a game-shifting advantage for you. So a lot of players that don't have as much experience playing against yellow may walk into those mistakes. And I think like this is one of those examples of me walking into those mistakes, because I don't know what to do as far as how to get rid of your blockers here. So all I can think of is try to bait you into using them. But you're sitting on 2 and 3 life, and I've already swung with the Unison. So at this point, I'm like, okay, do I play another Unison and try to get in with it? But here, like I said, you tapped with the lead, you tapped the leader, so now I don't have that lead double strike anymore.
Yeah, and I was very scared of the double strike on the leader, because the activate battle just pumps you up to 35k without having to combo. So I knew at some point in my turn I was going to need to combo that Zamasu and make sure that your leader couldn't pressure me on this turn.
Yep. And then here, it's like, if I invest extremely heavily on the Bardock, which you expertly did not do anything with the Shenron for, and now I go, do I play Frieza and risk a counterplay? What do I do here? And I think I'm kind of measuring. I want to try to get the swing, then use effect to warp your Sen and then restand. But I'm not really sure what order I should do here. If I should just go ahead and get rid of the field card with Frieza, warp the Sen off, or what I should do. It's kind of this is one of those, like, you have to play towards the puzzle. And then there still runs the chance that you have a negate in hand. So it almost doesn't matter which route I take.
Yeah, and I believe at this point you had mentioned you were hoping I wasn't holding a negate. I think I was actually holding 3 of them at this point.
Yeah. So I got lucky that you didn't have like a Vegeta's Final Flash in hand to just turn it off there, because I would have probably just scooped on that. Honestly, I know I can't do anything about, and I chose to warp the other off, and then there's the Mecha Frieza. So it's kind of a feels bad moment. It's like, okay, what do I do? I'm tapped out. Gonna be at 2 life. Or I'm at 3 life. I've got a Royal Supremacy and a Homicidal Clones, and the ability to combo and defend is going to be very limited this next turn. So I just have to hope that you're not able to reestablish your Super 17, but you've got that big Shenron that is going to be a double strike dual attack that, I have to figure out how to navigate around here.
Yeah, and I do go for that skill and make it a double strike duel here, just to try and push for game on that.
Yep. And it was like, okay, do I get rid of that, or do I try to stop the big Android 17? And I just felt like dealing with the Shenron might be a smidge easier than dealing with that Android 17.
I would say it is, just because the Shenron doesn't let my leader attack a second time.
Right.
And having the 17 on board also buffs my leader's swings, so that's just one more giant attack that you didn't have to out combo on this turn.
Yep. This was one of those perfect situations where just your energy advantage overall created such an insurmountable, and here you're able to just swing with unison and combo the world away.
Yeah, being able to Vegeta on your meta token, making sure you couldn't block that last attack, really did lock it up for me there.
Yeah, it was such a good choice there. Like it really punished my playing against it wrong, or just not having the correct answers there.
Yeah, I would say you did everything you could with the cards you had that game. I just had the answers, and yeah.
We decided to feature this one because this was the game that had the most interesting back and forth. I feel like game 1 and 2, they were both like, I feel like game 2 was over really quick. Like I think it closed out on like turn 3. And then game 1 was kind of back and forth, but didn't get to like show off the Android 17 chain, and was just kind of King Cold doing King Cold stuff. So like the interaction in this kind of showed how the match is. And I think honestly, I really feel like Android 17 has a really good matchup against King Cold because of your ability to tap cards unsuspectingly, and it's just hard to navigate without getting a peek at your opponent's hand and knowing what they've got.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it has a good matchup against a lot of decks for those reasons. You're just able to sneak in these tap effects and then punish your opponent for trying to pressure you in the wrong way, and then crack back with these gigantic attacks with your leader or with the 8-drop. And I did have the Dragon Fist Goku in my deck. It got discarded off one of your Frieza effects in there, but that's another way that I can just put a ton of pressure on my opponent while cleaning up their board. And then if I don't kill you off of that, I pass and say, all right, figure out how to out this or kill me.
Yeah. And Android 17 has a lot of removal that Yellow has otherwise lacked prior to. Because the 5-drop, I believe it's the 5-drop, gets to eat a card when it comes in.
Yeah, it eats a 4 or less in rest mode, but being Yellow, you don't really have an issue with having your opponent having a rested card that you can target with that.
Yeah. And that is just, that generic removal is something that Yellow desperately needs more of to have a bigger standing in the meta environment. Now that we don't have Mecha Frieza, Topo Lock as a deck is not as viable because a lot of decks aren't going as wide or trying to play 30 battle cards in a turn. So locking your opponent to one battle card during each player's turn is not nearly as valuable. So you look at Helku in Super 17, and then Set 10 Go Tanks, in my opinion, are kind of what I would consider to be like the top 3 premier yellow decks right now because of their option to have at the ready room.
And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed today's matchup. Sean, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And keep in mind, there's buttons down below and on the screen while Fluff does the outro.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks again, Sean, for coming. Game was super fun. Make sure to check out Rising Phoenix Odyssey's channel. They're awesome friends of the of us, and we love doing stuff with them and getting to do the RPO Invitational. So keep an eye out for more content from that coming. Other than that, read your cards, know your plays, let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and as always, fluff out.